Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that I am recording this presentation on Darkinjung land, which is also where I live, work and create. I pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. Hello, I'm Amy Pearson, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the power of brand strategy and how you can use the power of brand strategy to magnetize epic clients and explode your income as a designer. So if you don't already know who I am, I'm Amy Pearson. I'm a brand strategist, a designer and a business coach. I'm also a artist, podcaster, mother of 2 kids, wife, entrepreneur, the list goes on. I'm not going to bore you with all of my roles today, but I run a studio called Sun Mother. We are an independent creative studio building brands that generate tangible results in business. So I'm going to give you a bit of my timeline before I dive into today so that you can start to really understand how brand strategy became part of my life and my process in the studio working with my clients. I started really being serious about design in 2008 when I started studying communication design at uni. It's a long time ago, let's not talk about that. I built a solid understanding of communication design and really discovered how to create impactful designs with a conceptual core. This is really part of, a really pivotal part, I think, of my journey into my business, because the conceptual core has been fundamental to working with brands and building brand strategies. I also learned how to weave storytelling into my creative work. The one good thing that I will say about uni, I know that it doesn't do a lot in terms of helping us get into the workforce, but it did really give me the skills to hone my storytelling and my conceptualizing my creative works, that I could always be thinking deeply about what I was doing instead of just making pretty pictures, so to say. Then move forwards to 2011, I began working in studios. I was working for businesses and design studios throughout the years, getting first-hand experience of brand strategy, critical thinking, business operations and plans, and, assisting with running marketing campaigns. So I eventually moved quite a lot into the marketing space as well. And being a millennial that grew up with the internet, of course, that was already very much part of what I was doing in my spare time. I had a lot of side businesses and hobbies throughout the years. I've always been quite entrepreneurial. So the business journey has been quite long. Now we're going to leave the time in between 2011 and 2020 because there's too many things to talk about, including many, many businesses and other experiences that all play into my story. But this is a short presentation today, so I'm going to keep it really simple and stick to the trajectory of brand strategy. So 2020 is when Sun Mother officially launched. I started booking very basic visual branding projects and websites for very low profit. I was doing minimal strategy work, which is quite interesting given that I knew what was involved in strategy, but I guess I just didn't really see the correlation with needing to do that for really small businesses just yet. I sort of saw that as more of the big guns type thing. Basically, in this state of my business, when it started, like most designers, I was very excited about starting this business. I was taking on any work I could get. I was booking a lot of it. I ended up extremely overworked and underpaid, but I was happy to be free from a 9-to-5 because I was a mother. So I just had my baby 6 months before. I wanted to make sure that I was able to not have to go into an office and to be able to stay home with him as much as I possibly could while still bringing in a decent income. And so that's how Sun Mother initially was launched. And I'm still here today, and it's much better than it was back then. So it was a good move. Sometimes risks are really worth it. I'll never forget handing in that resignation to my last proper salary job. And then 2021, a year forwards after, scrambling in the first year of the business, by 2021, I was booked out months in advance. I had a major pivot in my business processes and I went back to my roots. So essentially, I began implementing strategy and I started slow and small, even though I understood the concepts of it. I didn't put a lot into it to start with. And I think, the slow journey was a good one because I got very comfortable with it. And I really got obsessed with learning, upskilling. I think some of the best entrepreneurs are people that are obsessed with their purpose and what they're doing and helping others. And in doing that, they continue to expand their knowledge and skills and grow. So I got very obsessed with learning strategy. I've always been a big learner, just love learning. And I reached my previous salary very fast, which made me realize that my previous salary was not all it was cracked up to be. Eventually, starting my own business, taking risks and putting myself out there in the world, which is very scary at the beginning, paid off incredibly fast. And it gave me a lot of confidence in understanding that I have these skills. I've always been great at this stuff, and I can pay myself a lot more than a standard boss could. And I got access to my own time and flexibility, which is another incredible thing. Do any of these feel relatable to you? For me, I felt a lot like this when I was in my last job before I started my business. And then I started Sun Mother Studio, and like I said, I was booking very low profit work. I was booking a lot of design work, but I wasn't implementing very good processes with my clients, and I wasn't really thinking about the bigger picture with my client work. And so I ended up in the same sort of scenario that I was in my last job at the beginning. The first year I was kind of struggling. I was loving the freedom to be with my son and the flexibility, but it was really hard, and I was really unsure about how I could ever make it work because I was not charging my worth or not charging enough. I had unclear offerings. I wasn't really actually talking about the solution to their problems. More on that later. I was not marketing my business enough because I was so busy working on these client projects that were, endless revisions, all of these things that made it very difficult. I had no strategy in place. I had no strategy for my own business, and I was a designer, or I thought I was a brand designer at the time, but really I was just a designer. Because I had no strategy for my own business, how was I supposed to give a really good strategy process to my clients, right? So this is where it all kind of began. If you're in a design business right now and you're feeling any of those things, this might be where you're going wrong. So here are some mistakes that designers make, and I made these mistakes too, so don't feel bad about it. Before truly understanding brand strategy and what brand design or visual branding really is. So, the unaware, maybe you've never really thought about brand strategy at all, and you have nothing strategic in your client process. You might ask the client what they like and hope that they like it enough in the end that they will approve it. Maybe you are the scared. Maybe you're not really confident that you understand enough about what brand strategy actually is. So you're just ignoring it and willing others to deal with it. So that could be other service providers, or just hoping that the client deals with that later with someone else or does it themselves. Okay. You're a little bit too scared to really do much about it. So you're just leaving it. Or maybe the attempted. You might be doing a little bit of what you think is strategy, but it's actually just design preparation or research for a project like mood boarding, or taking a look at the other people in their space, the competitors, right? Or maybe you're the pretender, and there's a lot of these out there. I see them online. There's a lot of people calling themselves strategists, and you've got to be careful, calling yourself a strategist if you're not doing really much brand strategy at all, because it can be negatively impacting your clients in the future. If you're sort of doing what you think is strategy, but it's not proper strategy, and you're sort of just like asking for the values, maybe you do an archetype quiz with them and play with the idea of color psychology, but that's sort of it. Doesn't really go any further than that. It's not really brand strategy. That's just what I would call some get to know you tactics, which are good. I don't think you shouldn't do them. But if you're going to call yourself a brand designer, it needs to be much more thorough, much deeper than this, because that's not actually a strategy. That's just some bits and pieces that will help to make the project maybe a little bit better than it already is going to be. But it's not real brand strategy. So let's dive into a little bit deeper about what actually brand strategy is. These are some of the mistakes that we can end up causing if we're not doing proper brand strategy with our clients as designers. We could create these designs that look really cool, but they lack depth. We could end up with clients wanting to merge concepts together. Has anyone ever had that? We could end up creating really unoriginal brands because we're taking too much inspiration from what's out there rather than deeply thinking about the future and the vision of the business ahead. Maybe we have really draining projects, or we're relying on trends to create our designs, or we're having to create multiple concepts for every single project, or we're creating our brands without a core, which means they're not long lasting for the client. Maybe we have unhappy clients. Maybe our timelines get blown out because the process just keeps coming backwards and forwards with revisions and it's never ending. You might be really badly presenting your presentations. So you're not actually on a live call with a client or recording yourself discussing what you've done with the branding. You're just sending the PDF. Your clients might be micromanaging you, which begins to get really annoying and uncomfortable, right? Because there's no real boundaries there. Or maybe there's a lack of trust with you and the client. These are all things that can happen when you don't have a solid brand strategy process in place. Milton Glaser, one of my ultimate design inspirations when I was studying a long time ago. Vale Milton is no longer with us, but he was a genius. So Milton says, to design is to communicate clearly by whatever means you can control or master. So if we put that into context, what does it mean? It means our aim is to design something that communicates clearly what we need to be communicating to our audience or to the client's audience, right? Now, whatever means you can control or master, if you don't have any brand strategy in place, how can you master or control that outcome? How can you create something that is a masterpiece, that is, controlled by the map of the brand strategy? The outcome is going to be determined by the strategy, right? So you can sort of figure out what the outcome is going to be. Now, this is what happened for me with the power of brand strategy. So with brand strategy, adding this into my process with my clients, I became confident, right? I gained the confidence. I became obsessed with developing my strategy knowledge and skills, which gave me more confidence, which is so essential for business, right? I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have that. It helped me to grow my audience because the confidence enabled me to show up and serve to grow my audience faster. It elevated my work. I started to develop stronger ideas, resulting in elevated brands that actually had depth and moved to the single concept method, no longer delivering hundreds of options to clients or even 2 to 3. It was, I would do all of the work. I still do all of the work, come up with all of the ideas, hone in on the most strong concept, visually and conceptually, and I would just go all in on that. My experience, I began managing design projects and guiding my clients way more smoothly, which improved their overall experience working with me. So the experience of Sun Mother Studio really, really improved, which, as you can imagine, improves the client experience. That's going to improve the word of mouth, the things that they say about me. It's going to improve, in the testimonials that they post. It's going to improve in the way that people engage on social media. Everything sort of begins to blossom from there. The outcome, I learned to focus on the outcome that the client wanted rather than simply the deliverables requested. The value really, really improved. So strategic outcome focused projects began to skyrocket the actual value of my service. We don't give more and more deliverables. We increase the value because this is a whole other tangent and I'll talk about it a little bit, but basically the value of the project improves the outcome for the client, right? So if you've got a higher value outcome for the client, their business is going to get more tangible results. So it won't just be, oh, that's a really nice logo. They've changed their logo. It looks really cool. It will be this experience that begins to shape the entirety of the brand experience and business, which trickles into every area because it's not just about the visual design. That's just one element of what the brand strategy can help with. Bookings. So once the transformation started trickling through, I began booking out months in advance, like I told you. And I think this is a knock-on effect from, happy client after happy client, the transformation that I was able to share. And then people started to really register, wow, this is working. This thing that she's doing is doing really well. Prices. So booking out meant I was able to increase my prices 6 times in 3 years, resulting in a huge income increase. Really. I charged $500 for my first logo in 2010, I believe it was. It was, as it always is, a family friend, and they needed a logo for a pretty decent company. Decent sized. And I created one logo. I had no strategy. I just created one logo and delivered it in person, went and presented it in person, very professional. Proud of myself for that. And he said, yep, I'll give you $500 for it. And I said, okay. And I took it. And I was 20 at the time, so I was pretty happy with that. The internet was not very big still back then. I mean, it was, but in comparison to today, like 20-year-olds today, completely different story. So I didn't have a lot of knowledge or understanding of how people did this stuff. All I knew was how to design. I'd been to uni and that's it. And when I started my business again, or when I started my business, I should say, in 2020, 10 years later, I charged $1,000 for my first branding project. So that's 10 extra years of experience and design improvement and, working for other bigger businesses. And I still only charged $1,000. So I wouldn't change that because I needed to start low. I needed to start low to learn. And so as you can probably calculate, I now charge $6,000 for a small branding package, which is just the essentials. And they do get a strategy in that. It's not the extensive strategy, but it is a pretty in-depth strategy in comparison to, I guess, what a lot of designers are doing. So we'll get into that a little bit more later, but I just wanted to give you a bit of an understanding of the trajectory and the growth for me and how, prices are tricky, but brand strategy does allow you to charge a lot more money than when you're not using it. So at this point, you're probably wondering, are you a graphic designer, aka pixel pusher, or are you actually a problem solver? I do believe that some people prefer to just be designers, to just be pushing the pixels, creating the cool work. There's nothing shameful about being a pixel pusher. But I am a problem solver through and through. That is my core. That is my purpose. I love to be really helping people. That's my whole thing. So yes, I love aesthetics. I love design. I love enhancing my skills. I love the dopamine of color. I'm an ADHDer, so I love beautiful things. But I could not for the life of me go back to just being a pixel pusher anymore because it doesn't work for me and it doesn't allow me to live the life I want to live, feel very purpose-led and aligned, and be able to be around for my family. So becoming a problem solver, becoming a brand strategist, and growing myself in my business really allowed for me to change everything in my life. Another great quote from Debbie Millman, another brand genius out there. A brand is simply a set of beliefs. Okay, so if we just start with that sentence, a set of beliefs, how are you going to really understand the set of beliefs of your client if you aren't doing any strategy work? Just asking their values is not enough to know their beliefs, right? If you don't create a set of beliefs around your products or services, you stand for nothing. You have no values and you have no vision. So this is the importance of brand strategy. If you are freaking out right now, like Jen here, or should I say Rachel, don't worry. Let's talk about the big picture of brand strategy and give you an understanding of what you need to do now. Strategy is the core from which a brand is built. It radiates everywhere throughout. What I mean by that is, I will explain this a little bit in a minute, but I have this concept that I have created, and trademarked. It's called Brand Galaxy, and it's one of my programs. But essentially what I do is I visually create this understanding for my coaching students to understand how to build a brand. And I talk about the brand strategy being the sun. So it's the core of the whole galaxy, right? Your brand has its own galaxy. The universe, that's actually all of the other competitors in your industry, everyone else. So it's not about creating a universe, it's creating a galaxy, okay? And your galaxy, what radiates energy? What creates all of the energy in a galaxy? It's the sun. That's where all the heat and the energy comes from. It sort of orbits around this sun, right? So without the brand strategy sun, how do you even know what to create? Like, nothing else makes sense. You need to have the sun. So when I say the core, that is the core of the galaxy. So the brand strategy is the sun, which radiates everywhere else, okay? It creates a clear roadmap of the brand's goals, future, and the project outcome for the design, but that's one little part of it. It deciphers specifically who the brand and design is actually for. Who are you supposed to be creating this for? Not the client. The client isn't buying the product. The person that the client is creating the product or service for, that's who you're creating the brand for. It amplifies the brand's differences and allows it to stand apart from all of the other competitors so that your galaxy looks different to the other galaxies, right? Business decisions are guided by this and become a lot easier to make because you can always look at the sun and get direction. It's like, okay, I know it's there. It's all good. Let's move forwards, okay? So are you a brand designer or are you a designer? This is another one. A lot of people out there are calling themselves brand designers, and they're not actually doing any of the branding work. They're just designing. So just be careful with how you express what you do and speak about your niche or your skills, because I believe a lot of people should really just be saying they are designers and they create, a visual brand for people rather than being brand designers, if that makes sense. So let's figure it out. Let's see whether you're a brand designer or a designer. So here's the sort of breakdown of where we do design and where we do strategy. So at the beginning, we've got the thoughts, discussion, the curiosity, the research, the strategizing, questions, mapping. We're talking to ideal clients. We're researching what the ideal clients are saying in, their spaces. We're really looking at the competitors and understanding the industry in great depth. We are, doing a lot of research and a lot of discussions and a lot of thinking. A decent brand strategy, it's not just an hour with a client. That's enough to get you started on creating a visual brand that really works, but that's not really an in-depth brand strategy, okay? So we start with the why. We've got the purpose, the mission, the goals, the vision. This is the Simon Sinek why, right? This is the core. I always start with the why. That's a little bit different to how some people do it, but that's how I do it. Most people in business, including our clients, come to us with a what. They come to us with I have a business called X and I want X deliverable, say a website or a logo. That's not how we create a brand that lasts, or a website for that matter, but let's focus on the branding. So we go why, who, how, what. A lot of businesses go what, how, who, why. We want to make sure we do it this way because this is the way to get the most depth and the most meaning out of what you're doing and get to the core of the outcome that the client actually wants for the future. Okay, so we always need to understand the why. Why are they doing this? Why really are they doing this? Not to make money. Why are they doing this specifically? The purpose, the mission, the goals, the vision, okay? And then once we really understand that stuff, we move on to who it's for. We actually really create a person. The brand becomes a person itself, right? We give it personality. We sort of visualize this brand as if it was someone that you would, I like to explain to my students, right? You imagine a brand and an ideal client to be two people at a party that would be at, the same kind of party. They like the same kind of things. They maybe wear similar style clothes, but they're still not the same. They just look at each other and think, oh, I would love to have a chat with that person. They look awesome. That's kind of how the ideal client and the brand are created in this sort of visual way. it just gives you a bit more of an understanding of how to really make this work. Because I feel like sometimes with words, especially as designers, we can get really caught up in the theory of the strategy, and it can be quite overwhelming. But if you create it, I like to gamify it with my students and my clients and make it really fun and really talk about this like it's a real person. You know, we can make this. It can be such an enjoyable experience. Building out a brand strategy. So then we have who it's for. Obviously, that's a very specific thing. That is like, you could spend a lot of time on that because that is quite important. Then we need to understand who else is in this space. What is the industry looking like? What's the market looking like? What position are you sitting in right now? Where do you want to be sitting? All of that type of stuff. A lot of research here. Then once we know all of that stuff, then we get to the visual creative direction. Okay, so how can we take all of this information and turn it into something visual? So we have the core groundwork to actually do that, rather than just, I really like pink and blue, and I like suns and leaves, and oh, I love this logo that person has. That's not enough. That's just something you like right now. But the things we like change all the time. So how do we know that client's going to like that logo in 6 months? They'll probably get sick of it. But if they know that this logo was built with this core groundwork of the actual vision of the entire business, and the ideal client really is like specifically focused on, we know where they hang out, what they like, you know, the way they engage with certain industries and products, their values, their deep values, what they think about, we can create something so much more meaningful, and that is super important. Then that visual creative direction then tells us how we're going to create the actual brand. So you might just be doing part of this and part of this at the moment. And maybe you're sort of going, what are your values? What's the market? And then this and this. But that's not actually a strategy. That's just like one little element of each piece, right? It needs to be more thorough. And only then do we move on to the copy, the tone of voice, the messaging, marketing, websites, SEO, etc. When we know why we do what we do, everything falls into place. When we don't, we have to push things into place. This is Simon Sinek, right? And this is essentially the core of what I'm talking about. Brand strategy helps us to create a design that actually falls into place. It all makes sense in our heads. We need to actually fully comprehend what we're doing and why we're doing it, so that then by the time we get to the design phase, it's like, oh, all these ideas come through. Everything becomes so much easier. If we don't have that, we're constantly like, you know, trying to push things, make them work, trying to get these concepts to pull together, and it becomes very, very difficult. So let's check out a brand strategy and visual outcome for a real client of mine. I would love to show you more, but I have very limited time today. So let's just have a quick look at one. Now, the process. The process is basically client conversation before we get to work. I'm going to show you a bit of what the client conversation outcome was. Then I send them a very basic questionnaire, not a thorough one, because if it's too thorough, there's less that I can talk about on the call that they don't already think, oh no, I already know the answer to that. I want to be there and see their reactions to the questions. So I really want to be able to prompt them and engage with them through a lot of the strategy work together. Research and workshop prep. I do that on my own before the strategy workshop, and then we have the workshop. Now, just for a basic strategy and a basic design outcome, 1 to 2 hours. Okay, that's what we're looking at, especially if you're new here. Then I will do notes and summary afterwards. I will craft a strategy myself and send a draft. It's quite long. It's usually like quite a few pages. I'm talking probably about 15 pages. The page length doesn't matter. The content matters. So it's not about just filling pages. It's about creating something really solid. Okay. Then we do the visual research. Okay. This is when we do the mood boarding, create the visual direction, send that. I'll show you the visual direction. Then we go into the visual design process. So by this point, all of the things that we've done really lead us to some conclusions in our head already. It just makes more sense. And then we get to the final strategy and the visual brand. And we send it off. Once it's all, obviously there are a lot of steps here, but just to give you an overview. And then finally the brand strategy booklet with the branding, the visual branding in there, and the style guide. Mine's very long and I include everything in it together. You can also separate out the brand strategy too. So here's my client, Buds by Hanami. So basically, Hannah's the founder of Hanami Cosmetics. She has a background in health, keen interest in fashion and cosmetics. Hannah had owned Hanami Cosmetics for 5 years when she came to me with this concept of Buds, which is basically an arm of the business that is for kids. So for parents to buy for their kids, for people to buy for other kids. She needed to have a fresh brand strategy for the business because Buds wasn't included. So it was basically its own brand strategy and execution. She was unsure how to simplify the nail polish color selection for this range, and she had no language or marketing in place. All she had was the idea and the tools to make it happen, aka she already had a cosmetics business. So her goals were she really needed to align and connect with the current brand rather than just be completely off kilter. She wanted to break into the kid and mum market, which is something we can aim towards with the strategy, but it's not something that the visual brand does. So it's important to know what goals are something the visual brand will achieve and what goals they will aid you in getting to. They're very different things. She wanted to have a fun-looking brand with cool vibes. I say that in bunny ears because it's not cold cool, it's like trendy cool, right? Increase attention and brand awareness. So she initially inquired asking for a logo, icons, and color help. And I'll show you a bit of what we did. So here's some parts of the brand strategy. So we've got the positioning. We create a rainbow of non-toxic nail polishes for little fingers that are much better for people and the planet. So as you can see here in this positioning statement, you can see what they create. You can see their values, you can see who it's for, you can see the purpose and like the real mission behind the brand, all in this one positioning statement. So it's quite a well-rounded positioning statement. This is the kind of work that comes out of the brand strategy before we even get to the design. Here's the vision. The vision is to be the bud of creativity. We had a lot of fun with the word bud, inspiring joy, expressive, imaginative play for little fingers. Now, they're all values as well. So we're able to incorporate these values really clearly into the copy and the strategy work. And finally, the positioning statement. Wait, no, this is not the positioning statement. This is actually the mission, not the positioning statement. But bringing a splash of color to every little moment, giving children the freedom of exploration and self-expression without the nasties. So that is the mission, to give children the freedom of exploration and self-expression. A lot of that is values, but it's also the mission that she had for kids, to be able to play with nail polish without getting toxic chemicals into their skin and to be able to express themselves like they see, other people doing with their nail colors, without getting that, that stuff into their body that she does not align with. So that was a lot of fun putting that together. And now we've got the visual direction here. So this is the mood board that was selected. I usually send out 2 to 3 at least, just to round out, what we've discussed and what directions are possible. And I also speak about why I've chosen each specific thing for them so that it's not just, because someone could look at a picture and say, oh, I don't like that pastel yellow, but that's not why that yellow is there specifically. So I will record a video or do this live with them, and then they will have time to make a decision. And here's the final product, as in the final visual branding product. So this is the original logo down here. We've created a smiley out of the original logo with the new completely hand-drawn typeface for Buds. There's a lot of conceptualizing going in here. These are the buds of the flower, and then this is the same shape that is used in some of the icons that are coming up, and then it's also obviously the eyes of the face and the middles of the letters. And then the other thing we did was we actually selected the colors of the final nail polish. So that was really fun. Being able to be part of that process was something that I've never done before, and I had a lot of enjoyment in that. And now you can see some of the different pieces that have come out. This is a real brand. You can go and buy it. It's a great product. I love it. Based in Australia. See, these are some of the icons that we made. We've got the actual bottles photographed now. It was a lot of fun. I love these photos. The photographer did such a good job. So yeah, that's the final piece. And look, I could have showed you so much more with that project, but we just don't have time today. I just wanted to give you a basic understanding. So the Stellar Strategy System is my system. It is the way that I teach brand strategy and the way that I create brand strategy for my clients in Sun Mother Studio. And this is where it starts with the why. This is the core of the sun. Then we work out who the brand is for, who the product or service is for, the ideal client. And then we work on the brand, the personality, shape the brand, and then the map. This is the direction we're going in, the way, the differentiations between, the other galaxies out there and where you're actually going. And then this is the execution. So all of those things we spoke about earlier. And the other thing I like to say is there's always a North Star. That's your real goal for the business as well. This has been so short. I would be able to talk for so much longer, but I have struggled a little bit because I'm quite sick. So these are some ways that I can help and guide you on your design business journey. I offer the Stellar Strategy System. It's a live program. It's brand new and it's coming very soon. I always get questions about strategy. I always have designers dropping into my Instagram DMs and my emails asking if I can help them or mentor them through this stuff. So I've just put it all into a program, which I'm really excited about launching soon. So if you want to go from pixel pusher to premium provider, join the waitlist for Stellar Strategy. I also have a brand new marketing membership called the Marketing Club. It is where big-hearted business owners flock to flourish. Join that if you're interested in that. And then next level is private coaching. I have a program called Brand Galaxy Builder, which is based on that concept, but we don't go deep into strategy with this one. It's more about outside of the strategy. It's more about actually creating offers that really do create solid value for your clients so that you can turn more of a profit in your business and make sales. So that's about making sales once you've done the solid strategy work. And finally, I've got a free podcast. It's called Brand Conversations. It's got some incredible guests on there like Georgia Perry, Jeff McGann, some incredible artists and designers. Look it up, have a listen. It's a really free, easy way to keep listening to what I have to share. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to be here, especially in this lineup. What an honor. I'm so happy to be sharing what I know with you today, and I hope you can get something out of it and really implement it into your business. I love chatting, so come say hey on Instagram anytime. I'm Sun Mother Amy, or the studio is Sun Mother Studio. And if you want to start your brand strategy journey, join the waitlist for Stellar Strategy System. This is the Stellar Strategy Starter Kit, which is just some base elements that can get you going. This is actually included in the bundle. So if you upgrade to the bundle, you'll be able to get access to this as well. And I will automatically add you to the waitlist. Thank you again. It's been such a pleasure to be with you today. Enjoy the design camp, whatever's left of it, and I'll see you really soon. Big love.